to the cloud. Wow. If I could ask everybody to mute, please, it would be most appreciated. I think I've got you all muted, but just in case, we don't want to hear you discussing what you had for supper, because that's happened before. Anyway, welcome everybody to our April meeting. This is my first as president. The power has gone to my head. Thanks very much for the to the board for this honour, and we're going to have some fun. First, a few notes. Please check out the Butterfly Way project on Facebook. It's a local grassroots initiative we've been supporting. They will, if you contact Charlene, she will send out a package of native seeds for milkweed and various other native plants to attract the bugs, the birds and the butterflies. It's a great project and it's purely grassroots. Great initiative to be involved with. Starting at midnight and ending on the 1st of May is the iNat City Challenge for iNaturalist. It's already started in New Zealand apparently, so we've got a bit of catching up to do. That starts at midnight here. Everything reported to iNaturalist will go through and will get recorded and will be sort of compared, we'll put it, or in competition against other cities across the country and the world, and also in areas in Nova Scotia. So please check into that. Again, you can find it on Facebook or just Google iNaturalist. And there's also a section of that for invasive species, and wanting the photographers out there to take photographs of our native birds and their invasive species prey. So if you can get a picture of, the usual one is a loon eating a green crab, that would make them very, very happy. Heck, what else have we got? Real important thing as well. We've got a few nice walks coming up. They're on the NSBS Facebook page and on the website. Amherst, Cape Sable Island, several actually. Please remember to pre-register. Very, very important to pre-reg with the organizer. Do it by email. Don't just click the thing on Facebook saying going or interested. You have to email the organizer so it can control the number of people on the walks. Very important. Oh dear. As a final note as well, as we've been discussing, it is migration time. We've all been missing the birds, but please, please, please show them the respect. They've traveled a long way. They're tired. Please, no bird deserves to be chased around an area, be almost hounded to get the photograph. Please give the birds space. Very, very important. What else have we got? Well, tonight's main event, Discord for birders. It's a sort of an overview of Discord and its various functions, channels and sections. How to use it properly, because a lot of us don't. It's a little overwhelming at times. And there's also going through its benefits to birders. Two hosts for this section tonight, Dominic Cormier, a long-time birder and naturalist, generally based in Nova Scotia in New Brunswick tonight. We just saw a lynx, we're all jealous about that.
Thank you.
Works as a wildlife biologist, both in Canada and abroad as well. Is the ebird reviewer for the maritime provinces. So if you ever had a weird sighting, it generally goes through to Dominic to be checked out. David Bell is also on board. He has been birding since the age of 5. Heck, all across Canada and the neotropics, Mr. Bell's birded. Heck, the last time I met David was in Rocky Point over on Vancouver Island, the banding station there. Currently based in Kelowna, where his partner is doing research work for a PhD on cougars. So many varied interests. But anyway, hopefully over to you, gentlemen, and hopefully you can take control of the screen if I press the right button.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, we'll just get going here. See if this screen sharing will work. Yep. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so yeah, tonight we're doing a little primer on Discord. This is sort of aimed towards people that are new to the server, people that haven't joined the server, but also people that have maybe been using it for a while but haven't really explored its full functionality and capabilities. So we'll start off with our new server logo. My friend Lev gave me this photo to use, and then I just used Photoshop to draw over it to make this logo. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy and hopefully you all learned something. We'll start with just a brief overview of what we're gonna cover. First, what is Discord? How does it benefit birders and birds? Quick overview of the server, different sections and channels and that kind of stuff. How to use it, what are the various features? How to set your notifications properly, which is very important. Recent updates, and then maybe some future directions. And the utility outside of Atlantic Canada. There are other servers for this, and it's growing in popularity outside of Canada as well. So hopefully it'll kind of take off and be like all interconnected across North America. So getting on with it, what is Discord? It's an app released in 2015. It was originally released as like a voice chat kind of thing for gamers so that they could talk to one another while they're playing video games more efficiently, using lower bandwidth and everything. In 2020, they updated the apps that is more of like a general messaging service, kind of trying to compete with things like WhatsApp and those kind of servers, Slack. It provides instant messaging, push notifications. It also has voice chat, which we don't use for our purposes, but everyone kind of thought that this was like, oh, this is kind of perfect for a birding app with, you know, push notifications and instant messaging goes to your phone. Works on both mobile and desktop, which is a huge advantage over some other apps like WhatsApp. Anybody with internet can access it. You don't need to use a data plan. And then in December 2019, some birders in Ontario kind of saw the function or possibility of this as a birding app, and they made the Ontario Bird Alert. They invited me to join it right when it was created, and then I immediately saw its possibilities. So I decided to make the server for BC, and then one for the Maritimes and one for the Prairies, just to sort of complete the set for Canada. And so this is kind of a funny slide, but the top part is all the different apps that birders use to communicate rare bird sightings, things like Yahoo groups, which is no longer functional, Go Groups, Twitter, WhatsApp, GroupMe, text chains, Facebook messaging, groups.io, all these different sources of information. And for people like me that, you know, want to hear about everything, we kind of got annoyed with how many different sources we needed to check on a daily basis in order to hear about stuff. And Discord kind of combines the functionality of all of those into one location, makes it really convenient and easy for people to access all this information and get alerts. And then Dom, I'll pass it over to you for this one.
Right. So we're going to go to the benefits of birders to start with. So the idea with Discord is that in regards to some of the other apps is that theoretically Discord is open and inclusive. So the idea is that it's a server that anyone can find and anyone can join. And it's also an easy way to get people onto birds. So some of those other apps like WhatsApp, Facebook, Google Groups, the way the information is presented basically silos some of that. And the idea with Discord is that because it can reach everybody, because there's a lot of functionality to describe where the birds are and what the birds are, the idea is to try and be able to have it so that everybody can have an opportunity to see these birds, and that it's not an exclusive club. Yes, so benefit of the birds, as Dave said, it's accessible on mobile or desktop. You also don't have to have personal profiles. So some of those things like Facebook, you have to make a personal profile, and there's people that don't like that based on privacy. Something like WhatsApp, it's linked to your phone number, so you have to have a phone number. So the idea is that this can be done either on your phone or your desktop, but it should allow more people to join without feeling like they're compromising in other ways. At least, from our perspective, it's fairly convenient, it's instant, it's organized. So it presents all the information in a digestible manner. It's easy to find. You're not getting buried in 20 on Facebook. You get buried, the information gets buried as soon as someone likes one other thing above it. So the idea is to try and have it there, so you're not spending 20 minutes searching through other things to try and get the information that you're looking for. And yeah, once again, it combines the utility of the other apps. So eliminates the need for multiple sources of info, which can be really frustrating for a lot of people, especially with the ever progressing nature of technology. It can be nice to try to have everything under one roof. Another thing that's tended to be missing historically from a lot of these other bird groups is they were a lot of times just rare bird alerts. So the idea with Discord is, to have other avenues to discuss bird-related topics. So, and yes, we have a RBA, and the RBA is just for rare birds, but the idea and the want for this is to have an ability for people to talk about birds in general with the members of the community online, where it's it's encouraged and people feel that they can contribute and get the information out there. Add photos of birders. Oh, Dave, you had Dave snuck that one in.
Note to myself, I forgot to erase that.
So the benefit to birds. This maybe seem a little less obvious, but hopefully with Discord, because it's all under one roof and we're all in the same community, it can create a more cohesive birding community. In some areas, through no fault of anybody, just maybe geographical boundaries or sometimes even language boundaries, the birding communities become siloed. And the more cohesive a birding community you have, I think it benefits birds, because in terms of conservation-related efforts, or be able to all get the same information to help with different issues related to birds in Nova Scotia. Another way it benefits birds is it acts as an education outreach tool. So just take in terms of something like a birding code of ethics. It allows those sort of values. Tony, you mentioned at the start, not harassing birds too much because it's spring migration. And I think that by having most people in the birding community under this one Discord roof, it allows that information to reach everybody, so that the old hats and the brand new birders and everyone in between can all see sort of like the collective ethos that we're trying to have, that could ultimately lead to better interactions with birders and birds. And then another way it could benefit birds is it's easy to communicate special instructions. So before, if you had the RBA on an email, you sent it, I found so-and-so bird. A lot of the other stuff the additional information that's helpful, a lot of times it's missed. So in this case, say a site access, well, maybe there's an easy way not to disturb a bird, but if you go and don't know that, you might flush the bird, or there might be something where it's stressed or it's resting on a beach or something. So ideally, and the way I see it is that this benefits birds because you can communicate that in Discord. It allows the space and the room to talk about site access, to talk about how you might mitigate disturbing the bird. Say, for instance, a hawk owl or something. You can say, well, it's viewed from the road, so you just need to stick to the road. There's no need to go off into a field or something. So hopefully all these things allow birders to interact better with the birds, and you see a net benefit for the birds that we all love to see. And I mentioned facilitates discussion of code of conduct, and it also allows a place to discuss conservation issues. So in the past, a lot of these bird alert systems or these bird groups, they don't have the space for that. It's a lot of just reporting what we see, and I think that the Discord has that room. So that could also benefit birds in a broader sense, to get more people discussing about conservation and habitat protection.
my next note is also just a note to myself that I forgot to erase, but I brought up this missile thrush because it's a perfect example of the site access thing. Like in Ontario, they've designated some volunteers to communicate with landowners and figure out access to private sites to get people onto birds. And if we had something like that for the missile thrush, it probably would have been a lot easier since it was on private property a lot of the time when it was around back in 2017 in New Brunswick. Back to you, Dom.
All right, so over this year, what is it? So originally it was, I shouldn't say originally, the impetus for creating a new server was to get out information about rare bird alerts. So that was the primary thing. So replacing sort of deprecated systems to get the notice out for rare birds that we all love to go see. But really, and when Dave created the server, you know, it was evident that it also was a place to discuss other things. So chat about birds and related subjects, a place where you can find information about all kinds of topics. You can ask for help on identifications, on ebird, on locations, you know, help with things from like, what are the best binoculars I can buy to, oh, how do I use Merlin, or what's a good recording app? And of course, it's a good place to connect with other birders. And I find, especially with the pandemic, a lot of us went online, but you know, there was negatives about that, but it also allowed us to meet and perhaps connect with others that we might not have connected with before. So birders behind the scenes. So just so you're aware of how it works. So the Atlantic Canada Discord server was Dave who created it, and he asked me to be an admin. So that basically the admin, it's related to content creation. So the server layout, the channel functionality, basically all the nuts and bolts of it. And then we realized that it also needs a bit of message moderating, mainly in terms of where best to put chat. So we're trying to make certain channels strictly for rare birds, but also keeping in mind that it's a great place to chat. So just trying to move that. So a lot of just moving messages to the appropriate channel. So that there's a little bit of moderation. So Brody volunteered to be a moderator for that. And then we have, because it's Atlantic Canada server, we have moderators for the other areas as well. So Mitch Doucette, New Brunswick, and then Alvin and Vernon for Newfoundland. And so that's just basically enforcing server guidelines, tech support, and message moderating. And I'll speak personally, like, as an admin, I'm glad to be the admin, but I don't really care or want to be a moderator. It's just, an extra task that I have, and I've got lots of other things in my life. So we're always looking to fill more moderators if that's something you want to do. Yeah. Let us know after the presentation if you want to be a moderator.
So yeah, just a quick overview of the sections. It's just the titles. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but
yeah, we can see it.
On the right hand side of the screen here, you have the channel, Atlantic Canada Birding, and then you have all the different section headers. And if you click on those, you can expand them down. And if you want to hide them all, you can just click them again and they'll disappear as long as there's no unread messages. So the basics are the welcome, news, resources, help, general, and then the different provinces, and outside Atlantic Canada and naturalizing. So they're kind of organized into these different sections. Hopefully they're kind of intuitive as to, where you need to go to get to the channel you're looking for. Obviously, if you're looking for help with something, Help Center is a good place. And if you're looking to look at what's going on in Nova Scotia, you can just click on the Nova Scotia section. And then a quick overview of the channels. Within each section, there's a bunch of different sub-channels. Generally, they're organized alphabetically. So once you kind of learn what the titles of them are, they're pretty easy to find. The provincial sections are organized by sub-region. And so the way that I kind of split up the provinces was thinking about, where kind of the main population centers and where do people mainly bird sort of their local patches. So there's like Nova Scotia, there's, the Southwest, there's the Valley, the South Shore, like Lunenburg, Queens, Halifax, and then kind of the Northwest, Northeast, and Cape Breton. And you could probably organize them a million different ways, but these seem sort of the easiest and most logical, just to split them up by counties. Yeah. And then within those subchannels, there's two main types of channels. We'll get to the form channels more in the update section later, but those are the new type. And then there's the general text channels. As I mentioned, there's also voice channels, but we don't use those for our purposes, and it takes up a lot of bandwidth, and it's not really necessary for a rare bird alert. And a little snowy egret from BP for some added color. Okay, so the part that most people have probably been waiting for, since I know a lot of you are already on Discord, how to use it. Number one, read the rules. Number two, check the how-to channel. Number three, read the pin messages. And then when possible, use direct messages. And last but probably most important is just explore the server. I know it can be a lot, like it's a lot of different channels. It's a lot to kind of figure out how to use. But the best way to do it is just to spend a couple hours like poking around, look at all the different channels, read all the different pin messages, kind of figure out how everything works and where everything is. And then once you figure that out, it's all fairly intuitive, at least I hope so. And then, yeah, like if you have any questions or whatever, feel free to contact one of the admins. I made it so that all our names show up in yellow, so you can just send us a direct message, and I'll go over how to do that in a little bit. Another added color, a little rough from Amherst a few years ago. Okay, so how to use the server, sign me up. When you join the server, this is the page that you'll see. You'll have this huge welcome message, which is maybe a little bit intimidating, but really all it is a rundown of the rules, which is this section, and then a little note saying to check the how-to channel. And this bottom part here is very important. If you agree to the rules, type /agree followed by your full name. Why we ask for your full name is covered in the about and rules channels, but it's basically to prevent spam is the main thing, because pretty much anybody can join one of these servers if they have the link. And we've had a few people join and try to post random stuff, but thankfully our filters kind of catch that. And the /agree thing is a command for the servers. There's a bot that's involved when you join. It'll pop up with a little like welcome message, and then when you type /agree and then your first and last name, it sets your permissions, so you'll actually unlock the rest of the server, and you'll be able to see all the channels. You'll be able to post in all the channels, and the first and last is your first name and last name, and that'll just set your nickname for within the server to conform to the rules. So going back to how to use, the number one thing was read the rules, and you can find those here in the welcome about rules channel. It just has sort of an expanded thing with the welcome message and a brief rundown of how to use the server, how to use the different channels and stuff. Number two is check the how-to channel. You can find that in the resources section. And this has instructions on pretty much everything you need to know about the server. Some things in the server, even, I've been using it for several years and I always forget how to do certain things. So it's good to check back here once in a while just to figure out, maybe there's some setting that you could have set to improve your experience that you haven't done yet. And then, so checking the rules within each channel, all of the general text channels, like these ones that don't have the little bubbles beside them, they'll have what's called a pinned message, and this has channel specific rules, usually just sort of an idea of what to post and what not to post. You can find those by clicking on the little pin at the top right. And then when you do that, there'll be this pinned message that pops up and it'll say, this is for birds in these counties, and then whatever else, other instructions. There's also kind of a very basic thing at the top of everyone, just kind of describes what that channel is for. So for Southwest Nova Scotia, it just says, covering Digby, Shelburne, and Yarmouth counties. So if you're not in those counties and you see an interesting bird and you're in this channel, you're probably in the wrong place, and you can click on one of the other channels to find where you're supposed to be posting. And then, as I mentioned, there's some new forum channels. These work a little bit differently, and they don't have pinned messages in them. They have what are called post guidelines. And those are found by clicking this very unobtrusive little button here. But when you click that, it expands and it has the same message as the pin messages, just what to post, how to do certain things. And then last but not least, use the DM feature. There's a lot of times where somebody posts something and then you get people asking sort of personal questions in the general chat. If it's something that you don't think needs to be seen by all 700 people in the server, you can just click on their name right there. And then this little button pops up or box pops up and it says message that person. You can just send them a quick message. And if they're online, they'll get it and they can just respond to you privately. Another way, instead of clicking on their name within the channel, you can just find them in the list of people that are online at the right and just click on their name there. And when you do that, or when somebody sends you a DM, it'll pop up here. So you have your list of servers and then you have this little Discord icon. If you click on that, you can see all of your direct messages. And then clicking on the person that sent you the message, you can see Dom send me a message, direct message your fellow birders here. So this is what the direct message system looks like within Discord. And I highly encourage people to use it. But if it is something that you think isn't like important, clarifying locations or site access or whatever, like feel free to message those in the main channels. And then I'll switch back to you, Dom, for this section. You're on mute.
All right, so how to use the RBA. So originally in Nova Scotia, we had, it started with a phone RBA and then it switched to an email RBA, but that's exactly what it was, just an RBA, a rare bird alert. So it was only for reporting rare birds. So that functionality is maintained in Discord. So there's a Nova Scotia RBA and it's only for posting rare birds. So that's the rule number one. Rule number two is referred to rule number one. But of course, we want to make this more than just posting of rare birds. So there's other options besides just the RBA. But for the RBA, it's for rare birds. So at the provincial level, you basically think of it, will someone chase this bird from a different county or a different province? Like, is someone going to drive 3 hours? And we do have a list of like what is reportable for the RBA, but I do find it very helpful to think about that in terms of like, is someone going to want to drive 3 hours to go see this? And typically, if the answer is yes, then it's probably worthy of the provincial RBA. The regional RBAs are a little different. So, of course, we have all those regions like you saw. So the questions you want to ask is, does this bird show up only a few times per year in the region? So will someone locally, if you report that bird, are they going to want to go see it within that day, or will they drop what they're doing? So a good example of recently, there's a brown thrasher at Point Pleasant Park in Halifax. So, we get a fair amount of brown thrashers a year. And so, it's maybe not at the level of the provincial RBA, but definitely if it's in your region, people are going to want to go see X. Might be the only one they'll see all year. And if it's not, use the chat channel. So that the idea of the chat channels is that it really is just to talk about birds. So we're not trying to force anyone to say, oh, you can only talk about, our rare birds. And this is hopefully what people understand, is that, the idea of keeping the RBAs on message is not to discourage chat. In fact, it's the opposite. It's just so that people have an opportunity to know where to look for the type of discussion they're looking for, and to be able to maintain sort of that alert functionality where if they get a ping, it's because they're out and they hear a ping, it's like, oh, there's a rare bird somewhere that I might want to pull a U-turn and go see. And then, of course, so the RBA is the new forum channel. So the way the provincial RBA works is that it keeps updates within the thread and channel. So once a rare bird is reported, you can, of course, then put more messages. But for instance, I'll just use the golden crowned sparrow in Canso as an example. Once I knew that it was there, as people are going, it's good to have all the updates. But me personally, like I have the option to go and see all the updates or not. And so the idea is that once you know a rare bird is there, then if you're thinking about trying to go see it, then you'll take that information, you'll get the updates. And if not, if well, I have no chance of going to see this bird and you don't need to know all the updates exactly, then you can unfollow or not follow that thread. So hopefully it allows just for people to be able to focus on the information that they want and sort of tune out the information that they're not interested in. And so if you see a LeConte sparrow, that goes on the province-wide RBA. That's a nice photo that Dave took of a bird we found on Seal Island. And then down the bottom, there's a Western palm warbler, which is a bird that you don't see too often, but of course in the fall we get a fair amount. So that's something that's of interest probably, or you're excited to share, but that is worth staying in the chat channels. So how to use chat? Well, free for all. It's not a whole free for all, but the idea is that this is a server for birds, and to be honest, most nature related stuff. But yeah, keep it to bird and nature related stuff only. We do have other avenues for all kinds of things, and at some point you do have to sort of restrict the scope of it. But so some ideas to chat, and this is just a little bit of a catch-all for different things, but like interesting sightings. That could be, even something like something very common like a mallard, but interesting behavior you've never witnessed before. Interesting sightings, maybe is a bird you see every year, but all of a sudden there's a huge flock of them and you've never seen them flock. And then first of years, it's always nice to say, oh, barn swallows are back. But if it's 2 weeks in, people have already seen their barn swallows, maybe people might not be interested in that. But of course, you can still post it. People are not, we're not going to delete those messages. So migration events, that's another thing that, and this is coming back to a little bit, the utility for birders for the Discord. All this stuff on this list for these ideas is something that I think got missed previously. So yeah, you talk about it personally amongst other birders, but there really wasn't a community-wide space to talk about these things in an easy way. So there's all kinds of interesting migration events that happen in Nova Scotia in particular, certain weather patterns that, look promising to set up an interesting migration event. So this is a great spot to talk about them. Another thing you can talk about is introduced species. We don't have that on there, but there's the mandarin duck, and there's always interesting stuff going on with in this case an escaped bird, but introduced birds establishing. Tony is mentioning he's seeing lots of helmeted guinea fowl around. So it provides an area to talk about birds and just like the things we're noticing. It could also be like site access updates. So we don't have a specific channel for that, and we might add one later to relate to site. Just describing how to access some sites. But if you're not from the valley, you might not know how to access the new minus sewage lagoons anymore, right? So it's things like that are like, different hotspots in different areas. You might have no idea how to get there, and it might seem intimidating. So hopefully this is a place where you can just say, hey, I've never been to this area and I would like to go, and I see all these birders seeing these really nice birds at these areas. Please tell me how I can get there and see these things. And then also a great spot to suggest new hotspots. So, Nova Scotia is big and there's not that many birds. So there's always new places to discover. Another thing, I know the Bird Society was handing out bird and butterfly friendly gardening stuff. So, if we want to talk about how to make, your place more bird friendly, that's a great thing. Travel tips, a lot of us have traveled extensively and birded in lots of places. So if you're interested, just throw that out, and maybe that discussion happens in a direct message eventually if you're asking for specifics about a location. But if you're looking for bird related travel tips, absolutely. And then of course conservation, there's all kinds of issues. Just recently there was a discussion about Nova Scotia Power and their brush clearing. But I think that this is a good place to have these discussions amongst the birding community, and that it's worthwhile to have a space for these things. So how to use the other channels? All right, so then these are more specific. So the chat, it's as you can see, it's very general. The resources, we're just trying to keep it to things like links to commonly wanted source of information. So, and in this case, the links to the other servers, but there's other things as well. I don't remember everything that's in there, but resources to map. So what areas each channel is referring to, and then articles. You can search the 4-letter code. I think that's probably the most genius aspect of Discord, if I say so myself. But there's the alpha code search. It's a bot. So birders, like for me especially, like because I've been birding for a while, I tend to forget that people don't know 4-letter codes, and it just becomes second nature to refer to a bird under its 4-letter code, which originally were created for banding purposes to shorten the data entry. But of course, birders start using that. So this bot, you just type in the bird you want to know the code for, or the code that someone uses, and it should spit out the correct response. So that's a great resource as well. The Help Center. So there's two things. There's tech support, which is like help with tech aspect, but then help as in help me ID this bird. And I think that's a great aspect of the Discord as well. And it really helps the birding community. There's lots of unusual things, especially with digital cameras now, and like even cell phones. A lot of sightings can be captured, and just put it up there and ask for an ID. And to be honest, like I'm not sure, but I sense sometimes people might feel like, oh, I don't know, embarrassed maybe to post things. Just if you're not sure and you want an ID, go for it. People are happy to help. And at least from my perspective, there's no bad bird ID request. And it's okay to, if it's something rare, then it's rare. If it's something common, it's something common. But definitely, it's a great. There's lots of really experienced people that are on the server that can really help you out. And then ebird, ebird's another thing. I actually, Jake and I gave a talk about ebird to the Bird Society a little while ago now. But there's always millions of questions related to ebird. So there's lots of people that are very well versed in ebird and I can help you out. So yeah, in the Help Center, feel free to ask your questions. And then, so then the general. So there's in the other channel, the general channel, there's sub-channels. There's the Atlantic Canada chat. So that is basically a chat channel as well. So it's pretty broad. But the idea with that is that it's going to the whole Atlantic region. So a lot of that stuff that I talked about that could be discussed in the chat channel, that's applicable across the Atlantic region. But if you think that there's something that is more just related to Nova Scotia, then put it in the Nova Scotia channel, but feel free to use the general Atlantic Canada chat one as well. And then there's a rare bird discussion. So, just an example of what goes on there. Recently, people were talking about the Stellar Sea Eagle. But a lot of times there's rare birds elsewhere, but there's also rare birds here, and there's old rare birds that there's just worthy of discussing. Tricky things, for instance, like take gulls, for instance, right? There's always different gulls, difficult gulls. So it's just a space and room to have a discussion related to rare birds. And then there's the outside the Atlantic Canada, and that can help for if you're, say, from Nova Scotia and you want to go to Quebec, and you're looking for travel tips, you're looking for locations, you want to know if there's any nearby rarities, so that's the place to find out. Oh yeah, and then I forgot, again, the community events, which is another great place because just another place where we can advertise things and hopefully remain a strong and connected birding community. So in this case, of course, this talk was posted in the community events, but Christmas bird counts, field trips, bio blitzes, etc. So another way to just promote your event. And I know some people maybe, if they have an event, they've approached me or emailed one of the admins. Basically, if it's bird or nature related, just throw it on there. There's no, if it's a little bit broad, that's fine. It's just good to put as much as you can out there so that we can connect not just online, but in the field as well. And then the picture that Dave just put up would be something that could go in that rare bird discussion channel. So if you saw that in Nova Scotia,
Could
Although,
also go on the bird ID help channel.
or the bird ID help channel. So any, we can, when the questions come later, we can see if anyone wants to take a stab at that, what that is. But yeah, I'll give you a hint. It's a Western Empidonax flycatcher, and not Western as with a capital W, but a small w. In other words, it's one of the Western species. All right, Dave.
So I'll jump into the kind of the categories that we just covered there. The resources section is again found on the left drop-down menus. You can see all the different categories here. There's channels for acoustics and recording. So, you know, things that it's partly for like posting recordings that you want to have help with ID, but you can also use it for gear and like how people are recording, what people are using to record at night, what people are using to record in the field, that kind of stuff. As Dom mentioned, there's this pretty handy alpha code search feature, so you can go in there and figure out what all the 4-letter codes are. There's channels for books and articles, optics and birding equipment, suggestions. I might move that into the general section, but that's where you can suggest improvements to the server or like features that you might want to see. And then the social media links, links to different Facebook pages for the region, but also to various resources that people can use to learn about birds and bird migration. There's stuff for like learning the 4-letter codes, stuff for viewing nocturnal migration, stuff for looking at weather, that kind of stuff. Weather as it relates to birding, I should say. In the help center, again on the left, there's, as Dom mentioned, you know, tech support, bird ID help, and ebird questions. So bird ID help, we've made a forum channel so people can kind of keep their posts within the original thread. You know, somebody here is asking what kind of cormorant is this, and then you can see there's a few different comments helping them out, that kind of stuff. Feel free to ask any question at all. Like as Dom said, you know, there's no dumb questions, and there's always people ready to help. I think pretty much all the ebird reviewers in the Maritimes are on Discord right now, so if you have any questions about ebird, there's lots of people on there to help you. And then the community events channels are within every province. There's this, you know, provincial-wide community events, and yeah, feel free to post like talks, meetings, field trips, Christmas bird counts, whatever. Anything that, you know, multiple people would want to participate in. Even if you want to, like, you know, organize a birding trip somewhere. Say you're going to Briar Island and you want some company, feel free to post that in there as well as like a little impromptu field trip. And then at the very bottom, we have this naturalizing section. Right now, it's just covering butterflies and dragonflies for the Maritimes, and then also for Nova Scotia, because those are the channels that were requested. There's also a place to post bioblitzes. So I posted the City Nature Challenge with a link to the INAT page for that. But any other bioblitzes that come up, feel free to post them in there. And this is a section that we might be expanding in the future, depending on how much use it gets, and maybe putting in some channels for different aspects of nature. And then, so using this outside of Atlantic Canada, one big advantage of Discord is you can very easily join servers for other regions. I know when I came to BC, it was kind of tricky figuring out like, where do I post it? You know, if I find a rare bird in the Okanagan, where do I post it? Who do I let know? I have no idea what they use for a rare bird alert here, but with Discord, all the servers are linked, so you can just click on the BC one, you can join it. You can use it when you're traveling, because most of the servers are set up pretty similarly. They're all kind of based on one another, so they're all laid out more or less the same way. They all have pretty much the same rules for in regards to posting. And yeah, it eliminates the need to search for like, you know, how do I join this WhatsApp chat? Vancouver Island itself has, I think, 4 different WhatsApp groups, and none of them are linked to one another, and you have, like, it's really impossible to get added to them. Even though I live there part of the year, I'm not even in all of them, so I have no idea what's going on some parts of the island. But with Discord, you can just see everything in one place. And this gray-tailed tattler is one example of something that I probably wouldn't have heard about without Discord, because it got found a couple months after I made the BC server and was posted there first, and I managed to go up and see it. So getting to what a lot of people might struggle with, notifications, very important. If you want to hear about things, you have to have notifications turned on. You can easily subscribe to any channels you're interested in, so you can turn notifications on for only the channels that you want to hear from. When you're traveling, this is really good because, say you're in Southern Nova Scotia and you're going to Halifax for the day, you can just flip notifications on for the Halifax channels. And then if anything's found that day, you'll hear about it. And when you go back home, you can turn them back off so you don't have to get dinged every time somebody finds something. For the forum channels, you have to make sure that you subscribe to individual posts. And I'll go through that in a minute, how to do that. But say, somebody posted brambling up in Charlo's Cove and you want to hear updates beyond the first post, you'll have to click a little follow button. And then once you've seen the bird and you don't care about it anymore, or maybe the bird's gone and you don't want to hear about people posting all their photos about it anymore, you can just click the unfollow button and you won't get notified. So like this frigate bird taking off, no longer need notifications about it once you've got it. This is the one from Seal Island in 2017. So here's an example of turning notifications on for the forum channels. This is the Nova Scotia Rare Bird Alert. You can see I'm interested in getting notifications for brambling. So how do you set that up? First of all, you have to pick this little notification settings box. You can see there's a bell icon right now. It has a slash through it, which means that I'm not getting notified for any posts in this channel. And then when you click that, it'll have this little drop-down menu. You want to select all messages. The server default is only mentions, so you only get notified if somebody tags you in a post, which doesn't happen very often for rare birds. So you want to make sure that you have this all messages thing selected. And then within the channel, you'll only get, as I mentioned, you'll only get notified the first time the thing is posted. So here, when somebody posts brambling in Charlo's Cove, you'll get a ding. But for all the updates on that, you won't get any notifications unless you turn this thing on. This little follow icon with the bell. This adds it to your channel list. It'll show up underneath the NSRBA. There'll be like a little drop-down menu here that says brambling. And then anytime anybody posts anything in there, you'll get dinged about it. And then, so this is on desktop, and then I'll just go through really quickly how to do this on mobile too, because it's a little bit different. Starting on the left-hand side, if you swipe to the left, you'll see this little menu pop up. Click notifications, and then you click this notification settings button, and then click make sure all messages is turned on. And then you'll have to do the same thing where you follow each individual post.
Dave, I'm just going to cut in for a second. Because there's so many channels, we have it set up that, the default is not to get the messages. So if I was a brand new to Discord and I sign up, I'm pretty sure the default is not to send me notifications. And when we notifications, it's not that you won't see that there's new messages. So it's not going to alert you on your phone or if you're on the desktop. Doing this just makes me realize that perhaps we do want to set the default for the rare birds, perhaps on, but
you can't. It's for the server wide. So if I set it to all messages,
right.
It's like
Right.
It's anytime anybody posts anything in any channel, you'll get a ding.
Okay,
which you don't want. Yeah.
So I do remember people personally asking me, I'm not getting the rare bird alert dings, and so this is why, because you don't have the all messages turned on. So you do have to turn it on, and that might seem a little counterintuitive, but that's because we've set the server up not to be just an RBA, and I think that's where it's maybe a little bit of drawback, but I think it can be remedied by just making sure to turn the notifications on.
Yeah, and then one thing that I didn't put on this, but if you're using this on mobile, there is a setting in there for mobile push notifications. Make sure you have that turned on as well, and you can access that through your server-wide notification settings. Otherwise, you won't get anything sent to your phone for any updates. Okay, I'll switch this back over to you, Dom.
All right, unmute myself. Okay, so just quickly to sort of try and finish off, so updates. Whenever Dave has time, he's thinking about improving the server and then goes, hey, and reaches out usually to me or the other admins and says, let's do this. So yeah, so we're looking to do improvements to server organization. So one of the recent updates was having a specific forum channel for a Halifax RBA, to try and to separate some of the chat from the RBA, consolidating redundant channels. And then, hey, how we have there the new forum channels for RBA's Bird ID help. So that just allows it that if I throw a message about this ID, all the responses go in the same and they're all contained. And I don't have to scroll through competing responses to different questions. And then, yeah, if any updates that are made, Dave will put an announcement in the announcements channel, which is in the general one for any latest updates. And if you see that, yeah, do click on it, because a lot of times the idea of any updates is to try and make it more user friendly. It's not lost on me that, there's a lot of moving parts, and especially with technology, and not all of us are technologically inclined, and it may seem like I'm technologically inclined, but for me too, a lot of this it's not self-evident. When I first joined Discord, like, it took me a little while to poke around and figure it out. So if you struggle with it, don't feel bad. I struggle, we all struggle, and that's, I think, the most important thing is that in order to try and have this sort of broad community and the ability to discuss everything, it's going to be a little bit tricky or complicated with technology wise. So yeah, if there's announcements, do try to check them out, because it's theoretically helping trying to make it a little more user friendly. And Dave touched on this really briefly, but it'd be nice to maybe have more channels in the naturalizing section. I know that sort of gets away from the birding part of it, but I at least as I get older, I'm always discovering new aspects of nature. And I think also other people that got into birds were already into something else first, and they kind of move around. So I do think it's a little bit of a they go hand in hand, and they're complementary. So I do think that it might be nice to have that. Adding hotspot maps to the maps channel. So this is something Dave and I discussed. Yeah, like a lot of people, if you're not from the local area, you have no idea how to bird a hotspot. So I'm happy that if people want to make a map of your favorite hotspot or a local patch, I think we should be able to throw that up there, so that it's if I decide, oh, I want to go check out this place, I have the map ready. And then, yeah, additional regional RBAs. So right now, the only regional RBA that we have is Halifax, unsurprisingly, because that's where most people live. So there's, that's the most active just in terms of people. Although, in the Southwest Nova, of course, you guys get more rarities than all of us. So it might be, although, there doesn't tend to be a lot of Southwest chat that might happen off the Discord. But if you wanted to have just an RBA and then have a more room to chat about things down there, then you could think about adding an RBA specific channel. And then, yeah, you see what else Discord makes. Right now it's not a derelict platform, so the people behind Discord are actively working on it and making improvements. So theoretically, in the future, it'll keep trucking along. And a nice gaggle of whistling ducks. So yeah, so we'll open up to some questions. Tony, I don't know how you want to do this. If you want to, I seem to recall you can have a little raise your hand icon, but I think this will have, Dave, you'll have to stop sharing your screen, I think, first, perhaps, or yeah.
Sure, yeah. I was gonna ask if people wanted kind of a live demo, like I do have Discord open,
right.
and I can go through things too. If people are interested in, how to access something specifically.
Yeah, there's a few questions in the chat box, but maybe a live demo would be a good idea, David.
Sure. So if anybody has anything in particular, can you see Discord right now open? Or is
Yeah.
it still on the presentation?
No, I can see Discord open. Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, so when you join Discord, as I mentioned, you'll get jumped into this new members thing. This giant block of text will pop up. At the bottom, this is the most important bit here. You just type /agree. So if you do it properly, it should pop up with that little box with the little slash command, and then type in your name. And it's going to say unable to change nickname because I'm an admin, but it's going to add the roles to this. And that's how that works. And then, yeah, just flipping through all the different channels, like say you're interested in Nova Scotia, you can just click the drop-down menu, click on whichever channel you want, the Halifax chat, and then you can scroll and just read what other people have been posting. If you want to send messages, you just do it down here. You can see a list of everybody that's online to send direct messages to. And to access your settings, you just go to this little drop-down menu here, and you can see all your different settings and stuff. One thing that a lot of people have been having problems with lately is there was a Discord update where a lot of the channels disappeared. Make sure that you have this show all channels button selected, and then you can see what all the different channels are. And then, yeah, if anybody has any specific questions, I can.
Yeah, I see that Dave McCorkadale has a question. Dave, you'll have to, yeah, there you go.
I did, but Sarah put the answer up. Somebody else was asking how to join.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a link.
Yeah, I'll grab the link right here and send it in the chat. So for anybody else that's wondering how to invite people, this link is available in the welcome channel, the announcements channel right here, and then also in the Discord how-to channel. There's this little thing. All you have to do is copy and paste that link to whoever you want to send it to. So I'll go to the chat here. And then everybody in this message or meeting can see this. Can you share all the servers for other provinces? Yeah, so in the resources section, if you go to the social media links channel, just minimize that. You'll see there's this message, Discord servers for other provinces, and there's also a bunch for the states popping up. All the icons for them pop up here, and you can just click this little join button and it'll send you into them. You can see on the left here, these are all the servers that I'm in. So for example, this is the British Columbia server. Looks pretty much the same as the Maritimes one, except for it's only for BC. So all the different regions have kind of their own little sub channels. For the Okanagan where I live, you can see there's like an RPA, which it only has my postings because I just updated the server a couple days ago to have all these new channels. You can see all the different chats, and then otherwise it has the same things like help center, resources, news, welcome. The only one that looks a little bit different, I think the Ontario one is a little different. It's set up slightly, pretty much the same, but you can see it has like channels for rare bird alert. All the help channels and stuff are down at the bottom here if you want to access those. And then the Quebec one is the same, except it's all in French. They sometimes post the English names of birds, but often they don't. So you kind of have to click on the eBird lists or use the Google Translate to figure out what they're talking about, unless you know all your French bird names, which I do not.
And Mary Kennedy's posting in the chat that there is a Discord server for iNaturalist. So so non-bird related. So yeah, maybe our naturalizing section. If you want to discuss it with the wider nature community, that might be a good avenue to do so. All right, any more questions? Either you can post them in the chat or just raise your little hand icon like Dave McCorkadale did.
I've got a question here.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't think I have my camera on.
That's
So,
okay. No, we can hear you.
I'm using Discord right now, just kind of following you along on my phone. And I'm looking at the Valley channel,
Mhm.
and there's dozens of chats and posts and things that I don't really need to see anymore. And I just want to see the most recent ones for the last couple of days. Is there a way of sort of bulk deleting some, or do I have to go through them one by one, or what?
You mean like all these messages that are, if you
Yeah.
can still see my screen? Yeah, no, so you, as a user, you can't delete messages, you just kind of have to scroll through to see what's being seen. And that was sort of the reasoning behind creating like a Halifax RPA. And if there is demand for that in the other regions, we can do that as well, because then, you know, with this, you can just kind of like click on the ones that you want to see. You don't have to scroll through all this other stuff to find, you know, whatever it is you're looking for. The other thing you can do is if you know, somebody saw a good bird, or if you know what the species is, you can just use this little search button up here and search for like, I don't know, white-eyed vireo, and then it'll pop up all the results in the different channels for all the mentions of that species, or all the posts by that user or whatever.
Okay. And just the other thing is, what's the difference between posts that are sort of in bold and those that are more grayed out kind of thing? Is it just that the ones that are grayed out means I've already looked at them, or what?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it just means you've already read all the
Okay.
messages in that channel.
Thanks.
Yeah, so if it's bold, that means there's new messages. Yeah, that's a good point. Like if it's highlighted white or it's bolded, that means that there's new messages. And if it's gray, then you've theoretically scrolled through the most recent ones. I see, Paul, you're asking, are you able to change the order to the most recent at the top? That's a good question. I don't know.
No, that's just the Discord default is the most recent stuff pops up at the bottom, because that's where you send the messages.
Right. So the message box is at the bottom, and yeah, that's a Discord. That's an internal Discord thing, so we don't have control over that.
Any more questions or comments, folks?
Yeah, Ken.
Yeah, a hypothetical.
Yeah.
An upland sandpiper found breeding. Would people be upset if that were kept under lid?
Yeah, I mean that's a whole great question, because yeah, so say it's a sensitive breeding species. I think that even if people are upset, if the observer is doing it, they feel it's in their the best interest of the birds to keep it under wraps, then I think we just have to respect that and just trust the birder that's not reporting it. If you don't, yes, there might be occasions where perhaps someone's overcautious, but I think on the whole, and as a birding community, sometimes we just have to trust our fellow birders, and that if they're not reporting it, they have a good reason, and we have to live with that and accept that there will be rare birds that we won't see. And I mean, it's happened to all of us, and it's going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. But yeah, so like a breeding upland sandpiper, I mean, I use that as an example, but yeah, I mean, if say it was at a site where you thought, okay, it's easy to manage, you can access it from the road, there's no need to go in the field, then maybe. But like if it's like, oh, you have to tramp through a field or something, then yeah, that would change it. But yeah, in general, I think we just, if the person's not comfortable sharing and feels like it's there's room for disturbance, especially breeding birds, I think that's the biggest thing, then yeah, we just have to kind of, even if people are upset, I think that's just, at least from the admin of the Discord server, that that's my perspective. So but that's a good question, Ken. Actually, I might expand a little bit, because I think is maybe a little off topic, but Ontario had a big issue with that recently. Basically, the admins of the Discord server found out about a rare bird, and it was at a place that specifically had a policy. It was an owl, and the location had a specific policy not to publicly publicize any owl sightings from that location. So the admins respected that, but they told their friends and others that they knew, just their birding friends, part of the community, that this bird was there. And the bird was, like any rare bird, it was able to be viewed without this, disturbance. But of course, there's always room that if someone wants to do inappropriate things, you can always approach a bird and flush it. But that was when people found out that the Discord admins had basically what they thought was privileged information, it kind of got really heated. And I think that my experience from that experience, having seen that, I think that, yeah, if it's the observers don't want to publicize it, then I think that's you just go with that, and you just have to trust them. I see Mike Melton, you have a question?
Yeah, this has been really helpful. I'm a fairly new Discord user, and you've been showing where a lot of the different features are. But the challenge that I'm finding is finding all of those features when I'm using it on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Hidden all over the place, and I have no idea where to. Is there any kind of guide or anything like that?
If you go into the resources and then the Discord how-to, it does explain how to do some things on mobile. But the difference with mobile a lot of the time is, I don't know if you can see my camera here, you just have to kind of like swipe your fingers left or right to access the different menus.
Okay.
And that's kind of the main way that you access everything on mobile, is just like swipe, and then there's this menu, swipe the other way and you get a different menu.
Okay.
That's where everything's hidden.
Okay.
Just look for these little, like at the top right, there's this little 3 dots symbol. If you tap that, it pops up with all the different stuff. So you can set like your notifications, you can set your server settings and everything.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Just to respond to the question in the chat from Ron, also know, just saying when you try to join Discord, you do need an email address. So to join, you do need an email address, and then to create a password is just a new password that you create specifically for Discord. So just for those that might not have seen the question in the chat.
Yeah. One interesting thing that kind of came up before we started talking about Discord, and it's not related to Discord, but people might be interested in it. It is linked in the resources section. If you go to the links, there's this thing to birdcast, and you can kind of track spring migration on it. And if you look at, this is for Maine for the United States, you can see like how many birds are in flight per night, but you can also see how many birds have crossed the region, like compared to historical. So if you look at this gray thing is historical, and the green line is how many birds have gone through this spring. You can see that Maine is exactly on track for the number of birds that should have passed through already. So even though it seems like spring migration is a little slow there, you guys are actually like right on course for where you should be. If you look at Washington, however, you can see we're at about 50% of what we're supposed to be at. So birds are like way behind schedule here, and spring migration is, I promise you, much slower here than it is out there.
I was going to say, Sarah mentioned it seems slow. I was going to say it seems pretty normal to me, like just right on, nothing more, nothing less. So there you go. It's all I guess all local and depends where you're going.
We're just waiting for the return of more birds. We just want more.
I think that's it. You got to remember, Nova Scotia has like a really drawn out, sort of very slow trickle to begin. It's like a month and a half, April 1st to May 14th is kind of a trickle, and then boom, mid-May.
It happens.
Yeah.
Any more questions, anybody? Anything in the chat, or anyone wants to put the hand up? Any more questions for our experts?
And if you don't know how to put your hand up, you can just unmute yourself and talk.
Yeah. Well, if we have no more questions, I admit I occasionally find Discord a little bit daunting with all the channels, but once you mute things you don't want to get notifications about, it works great. Well, and it gives us one place to get all the information for the whole province and beyond. So it's excellent. So I'd like to thank David and Dominic again. I really appreciate it. And I'll bid you all good night. We'll close things down. Thank you very much. Good birding. And yet they will be here soon. They are coming, we can assure you. Don't lose faith. The birds are on the way. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening. Oh, I'm just going to double check the chat. No, just thank you. It's fantastic.
Thanks, everybody, and thanks for listening. And
Yeah,
thanks, Dave,
for
for
coming.
doing all that
Thank you.
PowerPoint.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening. And I'm going to shut things down.